Okay, let's go ahead and increase the brightness here. There we go. Hello everybody, welcome. My name is GumChu, also known as ASMR GumChu, where we strictly chew gum, with some exceptions, right? If you're new to the channel, I highly encourage you to click on that subscribe button with the notification bell so you're always alert of whenever I upload a video. And of course, this is strictly ASMR. I do enjoy making other types of content on YouTube, but I just really enjoy giving back to the ASMR community, as oddly enough, I spend a lot of my time on YouTube watching ASMR content to kind of put me in a zen, to kind of disconnect from the day-to-day lifestyle. And that's the motive here. I'm just here to give back to ASMR and the world of the creators that are out in this platform, as they've done me a huge favor of getting through some of the toughest times of my life. Now, we've gotten a ton of requests of people wanting another tool kit or tool sound video with the ASMR gum chewing, and just like yesterday evening's video, I've got a lot more of these Mentos gums left over, and so I figured why not have one of these while recording another session of an ASMR video. I don't know why there is bright lights in my living room, but it's okay. It is what it is, right? Okay, so I'm gonna let this settle in because my palate starts to water just having any type of gum like this that's very fruity and sweet. Kind of curious to know what's going on over here. Bright lights. Anyways, so I got this massive tool chest that weighs at least 80 to 90 pounds. It's got all sorts of random things in it. And I gotta be honest with you, I probably should clean it out because there's a lot of junk in here that I don't even need. And there might be some really loud clashing sounds, and I do apologize ahead of time. Sorry if I'm just spitting all over the place. I just realized that as I saw a bit of my saliva just shoot across the living room. But I've had this tool chest since I started working on my own car several years ago. And I've acquired a lot of random tools. But I noticed that the last tool chest I showed you, which is a carry-on bag of just random little assortments of like power drill and power impact gun, whatever, and random things here and there. But this tool chest here is massive. I can even try to show you if I lift it. It's massive. So we're gonna go. Ooh, that was tough on the shoulders. I just finished shoulders too. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this open. There are 3 tiers. Top tier is just easy to reach, quick snag tools. And the other compartment is all my sockets and impact, or all my sockets for my ratchet wrenching. And the bottom compartment's hammer, copper brush, all this other stuff too. So let's go ahead and unbox it here. Here's the lid, obviously. And this is a flashlight, as you probably all know. I love having a flashlight, especially one that's super bright but very compact. This is the Coast G20, and it gets the job done. Easy to replace battery on the back. And it's LED, so super bright and reliable, and runs very cool. And I find LED is very good when it comes to, dropping by accident, taking some shock absorption and whatnot. Doesn't get damaged as easily. I feel like they're a lot more resilient to that thing. But great tool to have. You will always need a flashlight, especially when you're stranded somewhere, right? So there's that. And I got one of these touch-up pens. This was particularly for my Nissan. I had a like a Datsun sedan. Not a genuine Datsun, but people call it a Datsun back home, aka Japan. And this was the color I had, which was this red, dynamic sunstone red. Paint code 99998PPNBA. And it's got instructions on how to use it if you remove the label. And it's a quantity of 9 milliliters of paint. So, twist on, twist off. There's a little... Ooh, it stinks. There we go. Looks like a marker, really. And you just press it, shake it, and then you're good to go. Alright. Got ourselves the chrome vanadium ratchet wrench. You can press the button here so you can detach it. It's got like a little pivot ball here, so it detaches from the extension or the socket that you're using. You can flip it around so you can go lefty loosey, righty tighty. I got a bunch of random nuts and bolts here. Always nice to have an extra set of nuts and bolts or hinges or whatever, just so keep it on hand if you need it for anything. I got some fuse pullers here, so if you're under the dash of your car, let's say your radio burnt out or your signal light just stopped working, it's not reacting to anything you're prompting the car to do or your vehicle to do, or even my motorcycle, greatest example. You get a fuse puller, just claw the end of it, and you just let it slip over the fuse and then let it collapse and then pull it right out. I got a wide assortment of Allen keys. Now, they used to be in a box that was well organized, but that box got dropped and crushed several times, which laid out all the measurements that, so easy to reach and whatnot. So there's got to be maybe like a, I don't know, let's say 6 mil, 5 mil, 7 or 8 mil Allen key here. There's a bunch more here as well. So I don't want to drop any because I don't want to wake anybody up in the apartment, because these tools are pretty heavy. And one neat thing that I've acquired over the years of working on my stuff is you'll often buy parts or tools and they come with these unique ones. My favorite thing that I've acquired with Allen keys is this one. So it's nice because the toughest thing about Allen keys is you can't always get the proper torque or elbow grease to undo either a thread or something, a bolt or a nut, whatever it is. Definitely a bolt, not a nut. It's because they come really short like this, right? And let's say it's a hard to reach place, so you gotta put the long end in and you gotta work with this much to undo it or tighten it. This, it's got the reach you need, as you can see, a little bit longer, and it's got that little bit more leverage so you can actually pry on it. But you just gotta be careful, right? Because I've learned over the years that whatever I use Allen keys with, they tend to strip, so you gotta be very careful. So I really hope you don't have to use that much torque to undo something. So with my ratchet wrenches, I get these what's called adapter heads, and these adapters come in various sizes, right? And it's always good to have because you'll never know when you'll need them. So I got one or two here that I often tend to break. And it goes from your typical, I think this is a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. Anyways, I'm not good with measurements. Look at the ethnicity of my skin. I'm so sorry, that sounded really rude. Just in my household, being Middle Eastern, it's always been like, if that's a tool that we can make, we can make. Doesn't matter the size. If it works, it works. Or if it fits, it fits. Sort of deal. So we never actually went off of measurements, but it's so important that you do use proper measurements. So just learning this will help you get the proper tools you need, right? You don't want to do the job half-assed. If I were to be completely blunt with you, my dad teaching me tools and how to use tools was always half-assed. I never understood what it was. But anyways, this is your typical adapter. As you can see, the reason why I say typical is because when you go to a hardware store or whatever, the tools that you get, it's usually like the first one you can get here. So, right? And I keep them on the top because it's easy to get to. And essentially you put that on the end of the socket you're using. So sometimes you have to do work on, something that requires a little bit bigger of a diameter or depth of a socket. And oftentimes that means you have to use impact tools or more torque or more elbow grease rather. So using that to remove the lug nuts of your car or what else could you use that stuff on? Let's say the railing of like accident or I'm sorry, my brain is cooked today. Just an example, the lug nuts of your car, perfect example. You need like a deep impact socket set, something like this, right? They're bigger, and you can see the end of it. It doesn't exactly fit on this. It just rotates freely. It doesn't actually adapt onto it. So what you do is you get one that actually fits it. So here's an adapter, clicks right on, and then this goes right on like that, so you can actually use it, right? Now, of course, it's not going to come undone on camera, but you get the point. Anyways, yeah, there's a different size here too. And yes, my deep impact socket set. So, now, this plastic here is just to protect it no matter what kind of metal or surface you rub against and try to reach spots, or let's say the depth of the wheels that you're taking off on your car, let's say, that won't scuff up the wheel. So it protects the wheel and whatnot. Another really great tool that I have here is a gapping tool for spark plugs. So every vehicle performs differently. Different types of ignition systems use different types of gap measurements. So we look at your spark plug, the gap between the contact point and the electrode or whatever it's called. It has to have a certain measurement so it gets the proper amount of spark. So the gap tool, you put it against, like let's say this is a spark plug and it's really tight and you want to be able to increase it. You just move it from the thinnest part of the gapping tool and you just work your way up and it increases it more and more and more. So very neat tool to have. And of course, just found more things to use. So it's just a few of them here, but I got a bunch of these screwdriver adapters. Essentially, you just have, let's say, a fancy looking screwdriver that you can interchange the head of the screwdriver bit, and you can just put all these little bits in, because as you're putting together furniture or parts of your appliances or whatever it might be, you might need, let's say, a very tiny Phillips, which is like the little cross looking thing, or one of these. It's somewhat of a Torx bit, but it's not. It's like the one that looks like a octagon or hexagon or whatever it is. Sorry, again, I'm cooked today. and you just change it. It's very easy. Gotta have those on hand. My fancy screwdriver here. I got one end that's a flathead, just a line, and the other side it's a Phillips, which is the cross. Yeah, this is a really good tool to have too. I forget what they call this, a crowfoot or something. This is like a really interesting tool that I've had to use before. Essentially, it's just like a little bit that goes on the end, and you can like kind of work on tough to reach places. I had to use this because one of my PCV valves was really hard to get to on my valve train on my engine, and it was just right around the corner, so I knew it was there. So I just put this end here with an extension, just kind of ratcheted it away, and was able to get the bit off. So always good idea to have little butt connectors for your toys in case you need it. Here's that fancy screwdriver. This one's a tiny one. Yep. I don't know what the hell this is. Welcome to my life. Ooh. This is gotta be brake grease, yeah. So this is what you apply on your slider pins or brake caliper backing pads, so it silences the brake screeching and whatnot. If you just got your brakes done and they're screeching, it might be because the application has not been freshly done, or they put a little bit too little, or they didn't put the grease on the proper spots where it needs to be applied, or you just got really good brakes. It's always hard to tell. If you're not an automotive person or a mechanic or gearhead, it's really hard to tell, and I get it. It's a very confusing world. This, super underrated. I hated it when I first bought it, but as I started to learn the mechanics behind how this thing works, fascinating tool. This is called the oil filter removal tool. So on your ratchet wrench, you slap this sucker on. Oh. And let's say you're loosening it, right? So you let the arms come out as long as you can. And as you're loosening it, as you're moving it, as you can see, oh, this is tightening it, sorry. I'm really tired. As you're loosening it, do you notice how the claws are trying to collapse? That's because it grips the oil filter. And oil filters are really slippery because it's got a very shiny end. Oftentimes, the casing is just slippery for the hands. You don't have the proper gloves or whatever. You just need that extra bit of grip. This is a fantastic tool to use. Now, for tightening it, I wouldn't suggest using this. This might actually damage the oil filter. It might even puncture through it. Remember, oil filters are only one-time use. For most cases, if you get like a higher-end oil filter, like a race application oil filter, let's say, it makes sense to reuse it because it's got different types of material on the inside of the oil filter. But if you're using just a conventional oil filter and whatnot, you gotta just use it at one time after 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers, or let's say even more mileage. We gotta change that out. So, anyways, great tool. And you're gonna laugh, and it's a running joke, but I often have my most highly used sockets just rolling around the bottom part of my tray that's hard to find. So these are my sockets that I use to work on quite frequently. So there's an 11 mil, there's my 10 mil right over here, and there's like a 14 and a 15 mil. These are really highly used, so I leave them right on the top for easy access. Okay, so that's kind of the first part of my toolbox. Now, you're going to laugh. I oddly have a Cuba sleeve for my lighter in my toolbox. No idea why. This is actually a really cool looking lighter case. I'm probably just gonna leave that out there, but it's always good to have a lighter. You want to know why? Because when I'm doing electrical stuff and you wrapping, let's say, electrical tape or shrink wrap or whatever it is, the moment you apply some heat to it, it kind of sinks it right into the electrical wiring that you're working with. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm stranded, I have a loose electrical wire, or there's something that I'm just quickly just tying up together, and you have some electrical tape on you or shrink tape or whatever it is, the moment you apply this right over it, it just makes like a vacuum effect, sticks it right onto the thing, and acts like an outer protection film or coating. So, little hack job. I love doing this sort of thing. And there's my fancy screwdriver that I was telling you about with the interchangeable bit, right? I'm going to start trying to blow some bubbles, so if I get distracted, I do apologize. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Here is some sort of a plier. It's got teeth in it, so you get proper grip. But if you want to avoid scuffing anything that you're trying to pry on, it's always good to carry one of these. A rag, right? Especially when you don't really care about, because you just put this right in here, like where the jaws of life are. And as you put whatever it is you're trying to pry, for example, I have an older motorcycle that you all probably already know about on my channel. And there's a fiber optic cable that runs in as a thread to the back of my odometer, also my speedometer. I guess that makes sense. And this cable works as like a sensor and kind of rotates the mileage or the odometer for me, but also reads how much I'm moving, so speed-wise. And there's like this really, really hard to get to thread, and it's very sensitive. They don't make them anymore either, so it's really hard to find a replacement part for this. So rather than just putting this metal to metal, always good to put a little bit of a layer between and be very gentle with it. And that's a great little hack I learned too over the years. But yeah, pliers. And it's interchangeable too in terms of size. You have two spots right here. You can always just loosen it up. And there you go. It's now got a wider grip. And right back. And the grip on the hands are coming off. That's really embarrassing. Okay. And I got some fantastic extensions for those hard to reach spots. And as you can tell, they're different measurements for different types of sockets, so this one will work great with impact. It's a Pittsburgh. I got this from the States. Yeah, these are awesome. They don't exactly work with one another, so. And I got several of them. I got some shorter ones, got some bigger ones. I just cut my hand. That is great. Got some narrow ones, shorter narrow ones too. I feel like my voice changed because I got a lot more static just going through my tools. Just a little kid when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. As you can tell, it looks like an instrument when you put them all together like that. I don't know what the heck this is. Oh! Awkward. So, here's the thing. When you're working on stuff, sometimes they come apart, right? Like, it's inevitable. This has a lot of mileage on it, meaning I've used it quite a bit. And it was a great tool to have at the time. Now I just almost don't even use it because it falls apart on me all the freaking time. But anyways, I digress. This, when it was working, I get it on there? Maybe that's not the right one. There's more than one in here, I know. Okay. Here's one that's put together. Voila. So it's like a screwdriver, but you use... Oh, there should go on the top. But you use your sockets on it, right? So it's like a screwdriver, handheld, and it's great for, like, you know, not so tough to get to applications and whatnot. And if you're really having a hard time, you could just have this here to guide your hand, and you put the ratchet wrench on top of it like this. Ta-da! And you just use it. Yeah. Right? And we got way more sockets here. I think you might like the sounds of the sockets. See, tons of more sockets. Now you may be wondering, like, why don't I use all the sizes of the sockets? Well, that's because there's more common sizes than others, right? If they use a different size all the time, kind of makes things a little bit more frustrating when it comes to putting things together or taking things apart, right? At least in our industry in North America, it's quite common to have 10 millimeter or 12 mil or, you know, but other countries and regions and continents use different types of commonly used measurements. So that's why when you get cars that come in imported, like Japanese cars or domestic products or whatever they might be, like different, that's something that's different, right? You'll tend to find that there's different types of applications of tools used for different types of products from different parts of the world. So that's why you might be wondering, you know, why would you use those other ones? Very boring, right? Just a typical wrench. But I could have sworn I had a ratchet wrench in here. So, similar to the ratchet, here, this thing right here, they have the same sort of idea for wrenches. So, instead of just having the one side here, like the fork or whatever you want to call it, the head of the wrench and the tail of the wrench, in the tail instead, you will, there's a spider in here. That is really awkward. There's a dead spider in this. Can you tell I use my tools often? In the great outdoors of North America. So rather than just having the head of the wrench like that and the tail of it being fixated like this, stationary, they actually have a rotating bearing in here that allows you to, just like the way this ratchet works, you can go lefty loosey, righty tighty, and you just kind of like keep your wrench on a fixated spot, and you just move it left and right depending on which way you want to move whatever it is you're fastening or loosening, right? I do love the traditional, you know, not so fancy wrenches because they do come in handy quite often, especially when there's something you're really having a hard time getting to. Those bearing ratchet wrenches can often break or get stuck or whatever. They're very complex tools and they're also very fragile, so not the best to use and hard to get off nuts and bolts and whatever it is you want to call it. Probably better for smaller application processes. So anyways, yeah, that's why I was holding that for so long. This is a wire stripper tool. Very handy, especially when you're doing car audio and whatnot. This has seen a lot of stereo systems, I will tell you that. It hasn't seen a lot of carjacking shit, though. Like in the movies, guy's got one of these. He's like, snip, 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 snip. Yeah. There's a larger version of this in real life. And that's like the jaws of life, but handheld. You can go through locks. You can go through like really tough cables and stuff, and you're just holding it like this, and you go snap, and you can. It's incredible. I just like, could you imagine like what people would use back in the day when, you know, there was no industrialism, there was no modern creativity when it came to making tools like this, or the technology to make these things happen. Like the tools they would have used back then definitely would have used a lot more strength of yourself, and probably would have made for a really tough time trying to get things done. So it's incredible that they've come up with stuff like this to get things done so much easier. The convenience, just, it's incredible. Yeah, and they have a bunch of like ignition wiring measurements here to help you. So if it's like in wires, I believe they call them by gauges. So rather than being like, you know, my water bottle has, you know, 200 milliliters in it, or, you know, we're getting 10 millimeters of rain, you know, they use something called gauges. So there's a 6 gauge, there is a 4 gauge, an 8 gauge, and it depends on to kind of telling you what the thickness of the wire is. So that has that on there, which is really awesome, which made my life so much easier. Yeah, so then I got this weird looking thing. Looks like a can opener, but it's got this really sharp thing on the edge. So you can puncture this through a lot of things. Oddly enough, I got this in a camping kit, but I've used this already on a ton of things, taking off trim, rubberized coating on some stuff and some surfaces like a door trim or interior or whatever. This is really handy, and you can use this to kind of pry things off like plastic pieces and whatnot in your vehicle or anything. So I have that on me too. And I got an X-Acto knife, cardboard cutter, whatever you want to call it. This is really sharp. Handle it with care, folks. Yeah, this is really handy. You can imagine what it's used for, right? So I don't have to explain too much on that. Oh. And this is something. It's definitely a measuring tool of some sort. Main product reducer, main product activator. Oh, cool. Don't know how this got in here. Might be my partner's, so. Anyways. Yeah. Alrighty. And here comes the fun stuff. I'm so sorry if you saw a bit of my side fat. Okay, don't be scared. Hold still. Ready? Just hold it right there. It's not a tomahawk, but it's kind of like one. Funny story. When I was a kid, we just recently moved into a home that was in the middle of nowhere, and new development. So we were like the first ones on the block. New party. And this was left on our roof, and we were just getting, what do they call those systems? It's not like is it the gutter? Or the eavesdrop, whatever. What do you call it? Eavesdrop, like the eavesdrop? I don't know. The things that collect the rain and dumps it out away from the home, which is really, really important, by the way. Always inquire one of those when you get a new home. Great investment. Anyways, so this was left in that thing when the guys installed it. And when I picked it up, it was all messed up. And I managed to actually fix it by, throwing in little chips of wood. And the head of it just stayed planted in it. And I've smoked a ton of stuff with this thing as a kid. And it has not budged since. And now that I move it around, it's got a little bit of play. That's a little concerning. But I mean, this is like 25 years old, guys. There's like no brand on it or anything. Somebody made this. It's really cool. Great hammer. Great prying tool too. And honestly, act of defense. You know what I mean? Like intruder alert. Right to the head. I got some side snippers. I think you might have seen this in my other video. It moves from toolbox to toolbox, I will say. Ah, this is the wire brush. Oh no, I'm gonna get shot. I just made a mess and we just vacuumed the apartment. Oh well. Probably wondering what you use this for. It's kind of like sandpaper. It does not feel pleasant at all. But you can use this to clean up some harsh surfaces or break apart some metal material on some surfaces that you're working with. And you don't really find these in stores that often anymore because all of them have like plastic ends, but this is made out of wood. This is an old one, and it's got an old product number on the back too. Holy cow. Straight from the carpenter's closet. I don't know. What was I going to say? Anyways, you want to brush your teeth with this or your hair? Probably feels very painful. I'm not even bother with that. Oh, and we've got a magnet tray. Guys, this stuff is so helpful when it comes to working on stuff. Quite often you gotta throw like a spare nut or whatever. You just throw it in here so you don't lose it when you're working on stuff on the driveway or whatever. And it's got a really strong magnet. Go against something. Don't put it against your TV. Oh, it stuck to the brush. This is Teflon tape, I think. It's really good to create some seals against stuff. I try to keep this around all the time because when I'm doing things like plumbing or, emission hoses or whatever on your vehicle, it's always good to wrap that around some threads so air doesn't pass through or water doesn't pass through and whatnot. I got some couplers here on the bottom. Got some RTV. You can probably guess what I used this on recently. A motorcycle. And I got a regular looking hammer, just in case the other one just gives up and is like, screw this, I'm out. Ooh. I found them. Oh, no, I didn't find them. Measuring tape. I always like the sound of measuring tape, oddly. Yeah, it looks about right. I'm gonna die. Okay. There's the ratchet wrench I was looking for. It's a 12 millimeter. And you flip the edge of it like that, and it goes the other way. And I like how it's got an angle on it so you can just like keep it flat against wherever you're working on. And it's got the fixated head on as well. So yeah, I love these things. Great tool. So underrated. And I got some spare copper wire in case you gotta do some weird shit with dynamite or something if you're trying to set off an ignition for that. Epoxy bumper weld. Super useful. If it ain't fresh, toss it out. If it's like a month or a few months old, it should be okay, but this stuff dries up fast if you have it sit around for too long. But great tool to use in case you need to patch something up. Greatest example, my signal light somehow got sliced in half, and rather than just buying a brand new signal light, I just used this and I held it on there for 15 minutes and it looks brand new again. So great stuff to use. JB Weld, great product. You'll hear a bunch of mechanics swear by it. Got some zip ties. These are super awesome. There's also a steel version of them. They're just called steel ties, but zip ties work like this. You just put the one end to another if you want to fasten something together, and it just kind of makes little sounds like this. Cool, eh? Fancy. I just wasted one. Oh well. Oh, and I got longer zip ties. this on the end. You can use this to, I guess, keep wires organized. If you want to kind of, I mean, frig, I even put like my license plate against a license plate bracket by holding it with zip ties. Don't put it up against anything hot because it will tend to melt. So super cool. Yeah, I love these things. And we got some 3M tape. Tough stuff. And it's double-sided too, which is sweet. I think I totally went off the rails with my soft voice. I don't have a soft voice anymore. But yeah. So I know I'm a little obnoxious with again, you have to apologize. You have to excuse me. I apologize. I'm cooked. It was a very long day. Tomorrow's another break day, right? But I had a lot of fun doing this because I know everybody's been bugging me about doing another tool video, and so here it is. You have to excuse me. I can't for the life of me figure out what happened to my YouTube Studio app. I can't see any latest subscribers. I can't see when people comment any recommendations for videos or suggestions. They get buried in the comments and even disappear after, let's say, a few weeks at a time. So old comments that suggest videos I'm trying to catch up to, I just can't see it. So if you recommended anything regarding the tools, just know that I really appreciate your suggestions and recommendations for the video, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I appreciate you tuning in and showing the love on the channel. Many thanks to you. I cannot be where I am today without you and your support. I really hope you enjoyed this. I probably got to clean up because my hands are filthy with all the grime from the tools, but this is just stuff that I use to pursue my hobby of being a side mechanic, an automotive enthusiast, a motorcycle guy, etc., etc. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed today's installment of a video from ASMR GumChu to you. Much love, and I appreciate you so much. Bye, guys. Have a wonderful day.